I wanted to make this video because I wanted to share some tips on how I deal with the youth. Currently, I'm an English teacher for an elementary school and a junior high school here in Japan. And as an English teacher, I play more of a supportive role in supporting the Japanese English teachers in the classroom. So, whatever they ask me to do, whatever they need help with, I'll support them all the way through. And in these jobs, in this position, I I have to interact with the kids a lot, and I'm actually very willing to spend time with them outside of the classroom just to get to know them more and additional English practice outside of the classroom. And I just enjoy spending time with them and getting to know them just a bit more, and really just to be an encouragement to them and support them during their elementary or junior high school journey. And so I've had a lot of experience with the youth ever since I got into college after graduating from high school, or even in high school. I always did a lot of volunteer work with the youth. I did a lot of youth camps with my church, and in college, I also served in the youth ministry and did a lot of volunteer work on Sundays, being a Sunday school teacher, and also doing a lot of activities and volunteer opportunities outside of the church, and also did a lot of basketball coaching with the youth within that setting, and also did basketball coaching at a high school boys level as well. So just spent a lot of time, a tremendous amount of experience that I built up just being around the youth. And, I learned so much from those experiences because I've done all that volunteer work ever since in college. It hasn't really stopped. I might have taken like probably a couple years off from doing all the volunteer work, but in some way, shape, or form, I've always been involved with helping out the youth, just being a big brother, and just always helping out, and I guess mentoring the younger generation, the younger kids, as I myself was growing up into being an adult. And so, I've looking back as being like kind of like a teacher or a mentor or a big brother, I've there's so many things that I've learned from my experiences in dealing with the youth. And obviously being in college and starting off with the volunteer work, there's a lot of growing pains. There's a lot of mistakes that I've made in the past. And even for me, like being in college, there was a lot of growing up for me to do for myself. So as I was trying to be a big brother and help out the youth and trying to be like a good role model, I myself was trying to mold myself into being a better person. So, a lot of mistakes have been made, a lot of learning experiences from being around the youth. And I think in the beginning, when I was so much younger, I was very immature, so I didn't know how to carry myself in a very mature way. So a lot of the immature things that the kids would do, I probably do the same thing. So I'm just a couple of years older than a lot of these kids, and I would act immaturely just as much as they did. But a little bit more maturity, a little bit more smarter and wiser in some sense. But there's still some things that I could just show them the ropes. I could just show them the way because maybe I've gone through their experiences when I was their age. And so, so maybe in the beginning, a lot of that respect aspect wasn't really there because I was essentially just like them, still trying to grow up, still maturing, and trying to get my way around the world, right? And so, because of that, because there's a lot of immaturity and a lot of, I guess, poor decision making, kids wouldn't probably respect you as much, or you wouldn't have that boundary as you would have like with a teacher student relationship. The boundary would be a little bit more blurry as opposed to now that I'm in a more established position and I'm much more older, and my I have principles that I'm more grounded in, and there's a level of boundary of respect that I have an expectation from certain students, and there's certain lines that I wouldn't allow to be crossed. While I was younger, I didn't really have those lines and those principles established. So there's that. There's the respect aspect, and also in in and for that respect also to be reciprocated. I didn't know how to really respect the students as well, because I was so young and immature. Like I didn't know how to give respect to the students. That's something I learned over time. I realized, like, oh, like, I need to respect the younger students as well, and treat them with respect, treat them how I want to be treated, right? And so, like, as I gotten older, I come to realize, like, okay, these kids, like, you're kind of setting them up for adulthood, and you're teaching them responsibility and what it means to be an adult, because eventually they'll have to be one and take ownership of their actions and be responsible for all the things that they do, uh, and for all the decisions that they make. So you kind of give him like a certain amount of autonomy, and understanding that, like, they have to learn from their own decisions or their own mistakes. And as like a mentor, as an older figure, like, you try to do show them the way and give them a little bit of guidance and advice, but you can't really control every single move that they make. And that's another tip too, is thinking that because you're in a, I guess, a authoritative position, or you're in a position where you're a role model and you could have a say in their lives, like, you might get confused in that, like, you could be able to control them. And I thought early on, because, like, you have this higher position, you are the older brother, you could tell them what to do, and there's this expectation that they should always listen to you because you know best. And you do, and as an older person, you probably do know a lot more than your younger students, than the youth, but you still don't know everything, and you're probably not right about everything, right? And so I think early on I had this misconception, thinking that, like, I knew everything, and everything I told them was the right thing to do, and that they should always listen to me, and if they don't, then, they should be, like, condemned or something, or they're just terrible human beings. But that's obviously not the case, and I come to realize, like, you can't control your students as much as you love and care about them. There's only so much you could do, and so much influence and control that you have over their decisions. And I've also come to realize that you just gotta. What I do is now I just offer advice, and I offer guidance, but I come to the realization that ultimately it's their decision to make on a lot of things. So I'll always lend my perspective on things and my advice, but I'll never force it upon them on what decisions to make, because in reality every individual has a choice that they have to make. They have the responsibility to make decisions. And all I offer from my own experience, and I come from a perspective where, like, I share my experience because I want to help people, and I want to help people make the right decisions in life. And so I weigh out, all the possible scenarios, or the perspective, or my own personal experience, when they're asking for a certain advice, or in some areas that they need insight on or perspective. But I just share it, and maybe I offer, like, a suggestion on what they probably should do, But ultimately, I know at the end of the day, they're the ones that have to make that decision. So I can't have like 24/7 surveillance over them or be like some kind of helicopter parent or teacher, because that's not my life. I'm not in control of their life. They have to make those decisions for themselves, and whatever reward or consequence comes from that, they have to learn to deal with that and be responsible for it. And so, that's another important tip that I've come to realize, that I just kind of, you kind of have to give them a level of autonomy and hope that they make the right decision. Because all you could do is offer that information or guidance and share your perspective, and that coming from a loving place. But ultimately, you can't control what they decide to do with their life, right? That's totally on them. And so there's that. And I think also, like, my level of patience and also that respect factor, my care and respect and patience that I have for students, I think has grown. I think early on it was a lot harder for me to just care about everybody and have respect for everybody, even for those that I didn't like as much. And it's so much easier to disregard them and completely ignore them. But even for those that, might annoy you a bit more, or some things that you don't like as much, I think I'm still able to offer like some sort of patience and still provide, some guidance, or still be there for them and still help them out despite what I might think about them. Because my love and care for students, I try to not make it conditional, and so obviously there might be some students that, might annoy you a bit more or just don't like you as much for whatever reason. And that's where, I gain the wisdom to, like, set some boundaries. Like, don't push it with these students. Like, don't overwhelm them. Just give them the space that they probably want, or you probably should give them more space, because you're probably annoyed with them. And just set boundaries, really. Set personal boundaries that you feel like is best. Maybe like limiting the interactions be more of a beneficial might be more beneficial for you than like spending too much time with these people that either they don't like you or you might not be fond of them. And that might help in the long run in just dealing with those type of relationships, and you know still maintaining like a boundary, a respect, and still be able to help them despite what you might feel about them, if that makes sense. And who knows, like over time, the students that you've disliked in the beginning might end up being the students that you end up being very close to, and actually having a lot of influence in their life, and having a bigger impact than what you initially thought, right? But maybe you have to go through those periods where you don't like them and they don't like you, and there might need to be that healthy boundary between you and those students. And so, with those experiences and me sharing these perspectives and tips with you, it's, you know, I'm glad I'm at a place that I'm doing this where I could just give back to the youth, and with my experiences that I've gone through and the perspectives that I've gained and the principles that I stand on, like I could share that in a more positive light where it could just be of a good influence to them and help them out in their lives. So, maybe they don't make the same bad decisions that I've made, so they could stay on the right path and continue to do well in life and make great decisions, and just go through life with purpose and with a lot of joy. And that's what I want to instill to the students that I teach now, and also to people in general, to those around me, you know. And yeah, I've realized how fulfilling that is. It has, as I spent more time with the youth, I realized how much more fulfilling that is, just to be able to serve and be selfless with my time and my knowledge, just to be able to help them out. And whether they receive that help or not, or whether that gets reciprocated or received well, I can't control that. What I can control is I could continue to just offer help and be of a service and offer guidance to those that really do need it. Because I know when I was young, I needed all the guidance, but maybe I always didn't receive it well because for one reason or another, maybe I was too stubborn or thought I knew it all. Um, and so I come to realize, like, oh, like a lot of the students that I have in the past, I still keep in touch with, and they're adults, and I've realized like the impact that I made. And um, even these students uh, being appreciative and thankful for just me spending time with them or offering guidance and advice. And that really means a lot to me. It really does show that at least I did something right during my time dealing with the youth. And I'm really grateful that I could be that positive impact. I could be that positive light to these students, and I hope to continue to do so. And there still may be areas that I still need to improve on, to be better with the youth. And I'll do my best to work on those weaknesses and continue to build on the strengths that I do have, and all the things that I've learned from dealing with the youth. So, yeah, those are just suggestions and tips, and just me sharing my experience with you. And maybe it can be helpful for you when it comes to dealing with the youth, because the younger generation will be the generation that will contribute to the world when they are adults. So it is important that we give back and be a positive light and be a positive influence, so they could pay it forward and do the same when they contribute to the world.